who have fully read the document, and we have about a fifth of you that haven't yet looked at it, and you're about 50-50 in terms of people who have engaged in a replenishment before and people who haven't. So that's good for us to know. And so I'll ask all of the speakers to keep in mind that we have half of the people on the call who are here participating in the first replenishment, which is a bit more than I was expecting. So I'm really looking forward. I'm really looking forward for you all to join us on this adventure. So I'm gonna end the call. I am going to, so I'm going to try to now share the video update from Peter Sam. Let me stop the sharing here. Oh, sorry, this is always, I know the technical side of things is always very exciting to see live, but let me make sure that I pull out the right.
Quentin, shall I add, this is Pauline speaking, shall I add a few words about this video when you're planning
Sure,
to?
please.
Yes?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, hello everyone. Nice to see so many of you on this call. So this, we were asked, for an update also on the investment case, and basically this is the video that was presented at the investment case launch. That was recorded before, but that was Peter Sands was at on the plateau for the investment case launch. And that we will make available on our website in a few days from now. Our teams is traveling back and so on, but we managed to have it for this group to show it today. I don't know if it's like 1, 2, or a few more days that it will be made available, and on the website as well. So it's a 60-minute video, and Peter has presented the investment case to the audience and the participants of the investment case launch. So we thought it would be a great presentation to start with. Anyway, Johannes was not available today as he's traveling back. And then after the video, we'll share a few comments on the events, and we hope to have a full debrief on the investment case, on the replenishment, and an update on the campaign in next week or very soon. Are you ready to go, Quentin, with the video?
Yeah.
Super.
Right. So I hope we'll hear it clearly, because it's always, with these things, it's always a bit of a challenge. Right. So let's go. All right, because everyone can see the video. Yes, let's go.
In the fight against the deadliest infectious diseases, HIV, TB, and malaria, this is a moment of reckoning. Over the last 2 decades, we've achieved extraordinary progress, led by implementer governments and communities themselves, backed by the global community through generous support of the Global Fund. Reducing the burden of HIV, TB, and malaria has had a transformational impact on the lives of billions, enabling them to live longer, healthier, and happier lives. Nowhere has this impact been more dramatic than here in Africa. Yet right now, our collective ability to sustain this astonishing story of saving lives and improving well-being looks in jeopardy. Will partners continue to provide the level of financial support required? Will implementing governments step up to take leadership and financial responsibility as much and as fast as is needed? Can they? The Global Fund's 8th replenishment will be a big part of the world's answer to these questions. A successful replenishment will drive continued progress against the 3 diseases and in building stronger health systems, will create a feasible pathway to nationally led and financed health services, and will ensure that no one is left behind as we work through these transitions and simultaneously navigate the challenges of climate change, conflict, and economic turbulence. The Global Fund Partnership is a proven model for turning donor dollars into impact at scale. Combining local leadership with global expertise, the passion and knowledge of communities with the agility of the private sector, the power of governments with the reach of civil society. This unique partnership is unequaled in its efficiency, effectiveness, and adaptability. Together, we have saved 65 million lives and reduced the combined mortality rate from HIV, TB, and malaria by 63% since 2002. These are not abstract numbers. They mean healthy parents able to work and look after their families. They mean children sleeping safely under bed nets, able to grow, learn, and thrive. Take Zambia as an example. Life expectancy in Zambia soared from just 43 years in 2002 to 58 years in 2021. To gain 15 years in life expectancy in just 19 is astonishing. Over 2/3 of that extraordinary gain comes from reducing deaths from AIDS, TB, and malaria. Despite the challenges, COVID-19, economic stress, escalating conflicts, the ever more evident impact of climate change, and in too many places, an erosion of human rights and a stalling of progress on gender equality, we have continued to advance against HIV, TB, and malaria. And we're not just saving lives, we're strengthening health systems, improving livelihoods, and bolstering global health security. The SDG 3 target of ending AIDS, TB, and malaria as public health threats by 2030 is within sight. Yet seeing the goal is not the same as attaining it. Our gains are fragile. HIV, TB, and malaria are formidable adversaries that are quick to punish any dilution of effort. Ultimately, we must get to a point where countries have reduced the burden of the three diseases, strengthened their health systems, and increased their own spending to such an extent that they can finish the fight without further external support. But we're not there yet. The path to sustainably financed national systems, no longer reliant on external funding, is exactly that, a pathway, not a switch. While some countries can and should do more now, for others, particularly the poorest and those afflicted by conflict, the path will be longer and more challenging. Too abrupt a transition will derail progress, leave millions behind, and cost millions of lives. A successful replenishment will enable the Global Fund to play our role in sustaining progress against the three diseases while simultaneously incentivizing and enabling the shift to nationally led and financed systems. To deliver on the Global Fund strategy targets for 2028 and to ensure we keep the SDG 3 targets within reach, we need to raise $18 billion for the Global Fund's next 3-year grant cycle. Why $18 billion? The answer is in this chart, which shows different trajectories for the combined mortality rate for the three diseases. The black line indicates our progress to date. The orange line represents the trajectory laid out in the global plans for HIV, TB, and malaria. As you can see, we are already off track. The 3 dots represent the Global Fund's low, medium, and high impact targets for 2028 set out in our board-approved strategy. The dotted pink line at the top shows what will happen if we simply keep doing what we're doing. With $18 billion, we could achieve and sustain the trajectory marked by the turquoise line, protecting our gains and accelerating progress. Most importantly, with this level of resources, we could save 23 million lives between 2027 and 2029. We could reduce the combined mortality rate by 64% relative to 2023, and we could prevent around 400 million infections. It took the world 18 years to halve the combined death toll from AIDS, TB, and malaria. With the right resources, we can more than halve it again in only 6. Every life lost is one too many. But to be able to reduce the death toll from AIDS, TB and malaria from 2.3 million in 2023 to under 1 million in 2029 would be an immense achievement. With a successful replenishment, we could make the most of biomedical innovations to accelerate progress against the 3 diseases. We could invest in critical infrastructure and capacities to deliver life-saving services. We could stimulate domestic funding for health and help countries make better use of such resources. We could better prepare for future health threats, make faster progress on the path towards universal health coverage, and build stronger, healthier, and more economically productive communities, helping to create a more just, peaceful, and stable world. That's the scale of the prize. Take HIV. If we act decisively and together, we could reduce AIDS-related deaths by 59% by 2029 and cut new HIV infections by 66%. This would take us within reach to touching the SDG 3 target of ending HIV as a public health threat by 2030. Think about that. Ending HIV/AIDS, a pandemic that has killed more than 42 million people, would be an extraordinary achievement, a milestone in human history. Innovations will be crucial. By deploying new prevention tools, such as long-acting injectable PrEP, we could radically reduce new infections. Accelerating the fight against HIV will save lives and save money. Preventing a 20-year-old from being infected with HIV means avoiding 50 years or so of antiretroviral treatment. TB is now the deadliest infectious disease in the world, claiming 1.25 million lives every year. As the chart shows, ending TB as a pandemic by 2030 will be very challenging, but we could get close by 2035. Deaths from TB have dropped by 40% in the past 2 decades, but new infections remain stubbornly high. With a successful replenishment, the Global Fund partnership could reduce new TB cases by 26% and cut TB deaths more than half. Programs have rebounded with good results than ever before. We must sustain this momentum. Taking advantage of malaria deaths by 29%, even though the population in these countries has increased by 42%. But far too many children are still dying of this preventable disease. Progress has stalled, and right now, the path to ending malaria by 2030 or even 2035 looks daunting. In fact, since 2015, malaria cases have begun to rise again in some areas, fueled by conflict, climate change, and resistance to insecticides and anti-malarial drugs. Given that the Global Fund is by far the biggest funder of malaria programs, a successful replenishment is absolutely essential to regaining momentum and preventing the deaths of so many children and pregnant women. We have the tools, and the pipeline of innovations is extraordinarily exciting. But right now, we're not deploying these tools at the intensity and scale required to achieve a decisive reduction in transmission in high-burden areas. With the right level of investment, we could achieve that breakthrough, cutting malaria deaths by 65% by 2029 and the number of cases by 57%. It can be done. Every year, more countries are certified as being malaria-free. By investing at scale and by optimizing the deployment of tools, we can reverse the setbacks and dramatically accelerate progress. In a volatile world confronted by colliding crises, the Global Fund's agility and responsiveness saves lives. Whether it's COVID-19, outbreaks like mpox, war, or extreme weather events like flooding or cyclones, we act with speed to support countries responding to crises. Yet the lives we save and our progress against the three diseases are only part of the story. Our efforts to combat HIV, TB, and malaria, including our investments to strengthen health and community systems, and our work to tackle human rights and gender-related barriers to access, have significantly advanced universal health coverage, often known as UHC. Indeed, 70% of the improvement in the global metric on UHC is attributable to progress against the three diseases. And through our focus on dismantling barriers to access, the Global Fund Partnership plays a unique role in ensuring the U in UHC is not just rhetoric. Reducing the burden of HIV, TB, and malaria has a significant impact in freeing up health systems' capacity, enabling health workers, hospitals, and clinics to tackle other health priorities. In the countries where we invest, cumulative health system cost savings from reducing the burden of the three diseases amounts to $103 billion. Yet go somewhere like northern Nigeria or Chad, you'll find every hospital and clinic still overwhelmed by malaria cases. In the highest burden regions, reducing the malaria burden is the fastest, most cost-effective way to increase health system capacity. And that's on top of the lives that are being saved. As the largest multilateral investor in health systems, we're right now enabling a massive expansion in medical oxygen capacity, strengthening community health worker networks, upgrading laboratory infrastructure, expanding disease surveillance systems, and reinforcing supply chains. The impact of these investments goes far beyond the three diseases and significantly strengthens health security. Investing in the fight against HIV, TB, and malaria also increases economic productivity. The $63 billion the Global Fund has invested over the last 2 decades has generated $1.2 trillion in economic value from better health outcomes, plus $400 billion in direct productivity gains. As an ex-banker, I can tell you that's a phenomenal return on investment. As a mechanism for translating donor dollars into impact at scale, the Global Fund is hard to beat. We're demonstrably efficient and effective. Operating expenses are only 6.2% of donor pledges. But we're also never satisfied. That's why we've just launched an offshore IT service center and are constantly looking for ways to improve for synergies with partners. When money is short, we must get the most out of every dollar. Using our scale and market-shaping expertise, we're driving down the prices of life-saving health products and accelerating access to the latest innovations. For HIV, TB, and malaria, for treatments, diagnostics, bed nets, and lab equipment, no one else can do what we do to ensure affordable access to the communities who can benefit the most. We have the opportunity to rid the world of these deadly infectious diseases. We can cut deaths dramatically, prevent hundreds of millions of infections, and accelerate the path to ending these diseases forever. By removing the shadow of these deadly diseases, even the poorest and most marginalized communities will have the opportunity to prosper and thrive. By building stronger and more resilient systems for health, we can make the SDG 3 promise of health and well-being for all a reality. And by strengthening health security for the most vulnerable, we strengthen health security for all. By mobilizing the entire partnership and by being simultaneously ambitious and realistic, we can accelerate the path to nationally led and financed health systems no longer dependent on external funding. We have the tools, the knowledge, and the experience to make this happen. Let us seize this moment, build on and protect what's been achieved, win the fight. This is the moment. This is the time.
All right. Thank you very much, Peter, for taking the time to be here on the video. And I want to give the floor back to Katie.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Quentin. I think a round of applause for the technical side of things. It's never the easiest. If I'd had to bet on something going wrong, it would have been that today, but luckily it did not. A little glitches there, but as Pauline said, the video will be being made public. It just isn't quite yet. And so that was a preview for all of you who weren't able to join during the launch event itself, which was the same video that we were able to see that day. So thank you, Pauline, for making that possible, and to colleagues at the Secretariat. I'm going to quickly pass the floor to Pauline and Jackie Evans from the Global Fund Secretariat to share some quick reflections around the Secretariat's plans in the coming weeks and months in communication. So I think, Pauline, over to you first, and then Jackie, or perhaps the reverse. So go ahead, friend. Thanks.
Okay, I will start, and then Jackie will add on the communication side. So thank you, all of you. Very impressed by the number of participants to that call. And thank you throughout for supporting the Global Fund in advocacy, that, allowed us also to get us there. We're very happy in view of the circumstances of the, the outcome of the investment case launch. As you know, we've been navigating a very difficult and complex context. Also, and you have seen it's been a bit different also from previous replenishment. You will have noted that we had not made any official announcement on our website or in the press about the fact that we're going to have the investment case launch in South Africa. Those of you with whom we have been speaking, who are participating in meetings, we have been mentioning that we had the confirmation from South Africa to host the investment case launch, but we had not officially announced it. So we've been navigating all that. We had planned, and of course we had sent save the date and invitation with the logo of the South Africa government to the participants and delegates to the investment case launch. We had planned initially to have a hybrid event, but then decided a few weeks ago, or 1-2 weeks ago, I lost track of time, to have it 100% virtual. We still had our team, a small team from Global Fund Secretariat that was in South Africa, and the hotel where we're planning to have the event, we turned it into a TV, plateau, where I say 1/3 of the speaker were, and that including Peter Sands, Lady Ross, and also some of our civil society speakers. But it's true that we haven't been communicating so much with the full constituency of GFAN as we did previously in the past. We did our best, and we'll definitely continue and share more in the future. We had been organizing an IC investment case briefing with a smaller group, also very close to the date. It was just a few days before the launch. But we are definitely organizing a full brief of the full GFAN very soon. Hopefully, we can confirm for next week for the next GFAN call. I'm still waiting for the last confirmation to give the green line on that. And hoping that our director, Françoise Vanny, with Linda Mafu, can give you a full update on a full debrief. We as a team, we haven't been able to talk to them yet. It's very, very fresh and recent. They haven't. Some of them are still in South Africa. Others are flying now or traveling back today, tomorrow. So hopefully next week, full debrief with Françoise and Linda Mafu, and also an update on the upcoming plans. With now the investment case is launched for the campaign and the plans in donor capitals and so on. So yeah, just coming back on the event, very happy. I mean, no technical glitch. That to start with, is very important because we're not that used to a full virtual event. It's, as a matter of fact, it's the second time that we're organizing an investment case launch virtual. Last time was 3 years ago, but that was due to the COVID, but we had planned it in that full format from the start. But it was, a bit like last time, a condensed format with short presentation. There was this presentation, this video, that was the presentation by Peter Sant of the investment case. That was then followed by some intervention under the form of panel, of high-level intervention, and also comments from key donors and implementing countries on the investment case. In terms of speakers, we had a very good turnout. So in addition to the Minister of Health, Motsoaledi from South Africa, we had 7 other ministers, Central African Republic, Malawi, Nigeria, Benin, Indonesia, but also from the donor side, UK and Germany, and many other representatives from donor countries as well. From civil society and community side, we had some great intervention from Sidi Sibulele from South Africa, from Horacio, and the co-chair of the Youth Council, and Farida Tiem-Touré from Burkina Faso is also a member of the Youth Council, but also from Vitali, from developed country civil society delegation. And last but not least, very important, at the closing of the event, we had a recorded video from UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy announcing the co-hosting of the replenishment with South Africa. And just to re-clarify on this, it is not that South Africa was hosting the PrEP and UK is hosting the pledging conference, as we've been doing in the past. This time, it's a real co-hosting partnership with a spirit of equal partners throughout. So they've been co-hosting the launch. They will co-host throughout towards the pledging conference. And so this, us with Jackie will add on the communication side. We hope to have this call next week with Françoise, Linda, where we can really have like a full debrief update with even like more information that would have been processed since then. And we can do that next week. Jackie, you want up?
Hi everyone. I'll keep my remarks very brief, since you've really got a great overview from Pauline. But only to add, the social media toolkit was distributed. I think many of you will probably notice there's some differences in how some of our other toolkits look. First, it's a new design, but more importantly, it's a new focus and trajectory. So you'll notice that the ask and the number isn't as prominent. Instead, we're really focusing on storytelling, on case studies, and on impact, kind of what the delivery of a robust replenishment looks like and would deliver. And I think you could really hear those themes clearly in Peter's speech. It's right now just in English, but with some French assets that are downloadable as part of the toolkit. The full French version will be available when the full investment case is also in French. The majority of the content links to the investment case, so without the French document to support it, it's a little bit disjointed. So we'll have that out together in the next few weeks. We're also hoping to use this as a bit of a portal so that we'll continue to add to this space. So as we have our docuseries launching in the next few weeks, we have some just tremendous video and storytelling. I just got a preview of it earlier this week and it brought me to tears. So it really is incredible. Will be added here, so those assets and the supporting resources will be available all in one place throughout the entire year. And as always, you are always welcome to reach out to me personally or to anyone on the comms team. We're always happy to hear from you. And if there's anything that we can provide or a gap that could be filled, just let us know. We're really happy to help. Thanks.
Thank you to you both very much. Appreciate it. And yeah, we really did want to have this call this week to make sure that everybody felt in the loop and understanding what was in the investment case, but we will continue the conversations with other colleagues from the Secretariat. And Jackie, as tools are created, we'll invite you back to share those and make sure that they're pointed in the right directions and that colleagues have an opportunity to share with you any other ideas or requests, as you know, we often have, for those types of tools that are useful in our collective advocacy. So Conte, I'm going to pass it over to you to give us a bit of a overview of the investment case itself, the content. So over to you. I see you're starting your screen sharing, so please go ahead.
Thanks, Katie. And I'll be brief because we already, I see, have questions and we'll hear a bit more, some additional reflections from Katie. But you've heard an overview from Peter from the Global Fund Secretariat perspective. As far as GFAN is concerned, we have a full brief where we share our sort of in-depth analysis of investment case that we'll send a link to all of these documents at the end of the call. But we really welcome a document that we find very strong, ambitious, even though insufficient, and I'll come back to that. Impact targets, it is really exciting to see what can be achieved with the money that can be raised. And we really thought that we really welcome the fact that a lot of additional work had been done so that we're not going to do the same campaign as last time again. We have different arguments, different data points, and we're really thankful to the colleagues at the Secretariat who have worked really very hard to make sure that advocates have all the tools they need and a whole new set of tools to make the case in favor of a global fund. We have bigger analysis in the brief we prepared, but in particular, back last summer, we put out something we call the 8 Asks for the Replenishment document. And in it, we detailed specific asks we had with regard to the investment case and what we wanted to see in what was going to come up. And so part of what we tried to do in the brief is compare what came out to what we had asked for back in the summer. And so one thing that we felt was like unexpected, but yet a letdown, was the Global Fund again chose to legitimize a funding gap, meaning that in their projections they assume that about a third of what we know is needed to achieve the global plans will not be met, will not be funded. We understand that it might be difficult to raise the money to fill that gap, but we do not think that it is the role of a global fund to assume that this gap should remain unfunded. We find that legitimizes, that makes the decision easier for decision makers not to fund at the level at which it should be for them to meet their objectives. We also thought that the language around fighting back against shrinking civil society space, though present, was to an extent watered down and weaker during the 7th replenishment, where that language was quite strong. And we also felt that when it came to discussing climate change, it was referenced throughout the document. There was not a lot of new data, new elements to help really ground those the arguments using climate change related to the 3 diseases. But there were efforts on that front. So that's sorry, we all sounded like a lot of complaining. There's a lot of things we thought was in fact really strong. In particular, we were concerned ahead of a release of investment case that there was going to be a lot of talk of sustainability, and that would be a way to prepare people for cuts, essentially, to pretend in front of funders that the money could be found somewhere else. And we felt that the way sustainability was framed in the actual document was walking a careful line between making sure that putting governments, both on the donor and implementer side, in front of a responsibility, in a way we thought was quite productive. We felt the document was very much centering partnership, which we welcome. Innovation and UHC are really at the center of the argument, and we felt that both of these arguments were done really well, and Align almost overcame some of our expectations. I'll stop here in terms of my comments and give the floor back to Katie for any things that I would have missed that she really feels like she wants to say in her own voice.
No, I mean, thank you, Conte. I think that's a really helpful overview. You know, it's one of the reasons we did that sort of poll at the beginning of the call was to try and make sure that we had a little bit of a sense of who we were kind of talking today to, and what everybody's sort of sense of the process and where we are in that, and what the investment case can sort of provide for all of us. So I don't have anything else to say other than, you know, I thought that Peter's video was very insightful and useful in terms of being able to chart a path for ourselves within the broader sort of global conversation that's happening right now. And I'm just going to point out, and I did put it in the chat, I think because we rarely use the webinar function as GFAN on our calls, sometimes we're shorthanding a few things. But for everyone to see any comments or questions, you should use the Q&A, I believe, section, because so far it looks as though most of the hosts from participants have been going just to hosts and panelists. So I think the Q&A function, unless somebody has changed something on me in the last 2 minutes, Conte, is probably your best bet. Is that correct, or have we fixed it so the chat works?
Just to say, no, so the chat works, but participants do have to select everyone instead of just hosts and panelists before sending their messages, but it is an option.
We're going to get to it, friends. We are going to get to it here.
I know. So.
We're watching both. So, you know, wherever you put it, we're trying to watch it. So at this stage, we'd like to open it for questions. And so there are a few that have been coming through on the chat. So I would like to invite colleagues to use the raise hand function, or I would like to see if Margaret from United to Beat Malaria would like to jump in and unmute with their question, and then Tarita, if you wanted to do the same. So we're just going to make sure that, no. Okay. All right.
We have a question.
Okay. So Tarita, if you're able to jump in, because I think Margaret may have had to go, so we'll respond to her. And then Sukeya, I will unmute after Tarita to let you jump in.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for organizing this meeting. I was curious to know, if possible, to elaborate a bit more on the reason why the investment case launch was decided to be fully virtual, and also why there wasn't much communication around it. Question number one. And the second one is more related to the Replenishment conference. I understand there's going to be a co-hosting. It's going to be different from the past. Have you discussed, and is there any ideas on how concretely that's going to work out, in the sense that where and when the investment case might take place? Because with two hosts is a bit more complicated and not that straightforward to understand where the meeting is going to be taking place. Thank you.
So Pauline, if you want to address that, and then Sukeya, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, with apologies, we will unmute you and allow you to raise your question.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm happy to address this question, and I can also address Margaret's question on the different videos and things. Yeah, Tarita, thank you for your question. In an ideal world, you know, I mean, we would have all the confirmation of co-hosting 3 months, 9 months ago, and then we would have been able to smoothly organize everything, you know, and have, why not? And like, we love in-person meetings, and you know, any event we can plan well in advance. But as you know, and as you're following several replenishment, you know, the context is very difficult, including to confirm hosts. So we've been navigating all that. We had indeed the confirmation from South Africa since December, but we were hoping to have also the second co-host announced. Then, you know, different factors made it that at the end, closer to the date, it seemed that it was better just to have it in a virtual mode. So, but yes, and we would have liked to be able to announce the two co-hosts even way before the launch of the investment case. So we've been playing with all these factors. We didn't want to delay any further the launch of the investment case, because for us, it's very important to have the investment case out and published and public. And because now it's starting. Now, you know, our team are going to go to the different capitals and present and discuss the investment case, the request with the donors, and work with partners, and you know, all the GFAN partners here who are already planning some activities in the different capitals to amplify, elevate, you know, the messages of the investment case and their own messages. So that's how, you know, that's how we've been navigating the context to be sure that we were able to launch the investment case, to start the campaign, because we're still planning to have a pledging conference at the end of the year. Just as a reminder for those of you who are less familiar with replenishment, it's very important for us. I mean, we want to have the pledging conference ideally before the November board meeting, because it's basically the number that we have at the pledging conference that will be determinant for then the amount that we can, you know, work with for the allocation, right? So for your second question about the co-hosting, and so where, how, the form of the pledging conference, this is something that is not decided yet. There are different options we are looking at, and there might be also others that will emerge. It's really now a conversation that will take place, and we'll discuss with partners as well. But I mean, for the moment, we cannot even mention the different options that are being discussed. But hopefully, Françoise, Linda can tell you more next week or in the following week, the next GFAN call. But definitely that there are like some very interesting options that could take place under this new format. And then the question, Margaret, was basically asking, will you have also like shorter video? Yes, of course. I mean, and this video, and it is long, 16 minutes, because I don't even know. I mean, perhaps Jackie will know more. I mean, will there be also like shorter version of the investment case video, or some shorter things? But here, I mean, this is rough. This is exactly the video that was shown at the meeting. Voila, because we didn't have the time to do any work on it. It's quite exceptional that we are able to get that from the meeting and to show it to that group. And I hope you found it useful. But there are many assets that will be produced in the weeks to come. I mean, Jackie, you want to add on this?
Sure. Just to flag up that the group of people that produced that event and that video down in South Africa are literally on a plane as we speak. That's why they're not here in this meeting. So the very next piece of the conversation is, and now what? With these great presentations, with these great endorsements, with kind of these powerful statements, what is the best way to make sure that we're leveraging them, but also making them available to other people and other groups and organizations, so that they can, you know, find the best opportunities to share these far and wide. So I know that conversation is happening, probably starting on Monday, to be honest. So we'll get back to you soon. But when that's available, we'll be happy to communicate it and outline that as best as we can.
Thank you both. I think that's helpful. And thanks, Teresa, for the question. I think it's useful to get a sense of that and understand where we've been, so that we know better sort of the footing that we're on going forward. So we do have 3 hands raised. So I'm going to invite each of the people who have their hands raised to ask their questions, and then we will go back to either colleagues from the Secretariat or others and ourselves to answer those questions. So first it is Sukay, and then Babacar, and then Robin. So Sukay.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, we're going to go to Sukay first and then Babacar.
OK. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup de m'avoir donné la parole. Moi, je suis Sukay Ndiaye, je suis la présidente du réseau des personnes vivant avec le VIH au Sénégal. Tout d'abord, remercier le Fonds mondial pour encore vouloir continuer à sauver des vies parce que je suis bénéficiaire de soins. Donc, si aujourd'hui j'ai l'opportunité d'intervenir dans cette réunion de mobilisation encore des ressources pour lutter contre les 3 maladies, je m'en réjouis. La question que je voulais, la suggestion du moins, ce n'est pas une question, mais une suggestion par rapport à la stratégie de mobilisation de ressources que nous entamons, que le Fonds mondial entame aujourd'hui. Nous savons que plusieurs pays sont interrogés par rapport aux mobilisations de ressources et que le monde entier a besoin de ces fonds, de ces ressources pour continuer à lutter et à sauver des vies par rapport aux 3 maladies, y compris le VIH. La suggestion que je voulais faire, c'est que aujourd'hui, nous sommes les bénéficiaires de soins. Et aujourd'hui, tout le monde sait que nous sommes confrontés à des difficultés venant aussi d'autres bailleurs qui finançaient les programmes de lutte contre le VIH dans les pays comme le Sénégal et d'autres pays, à l'occurrence les Américains. Nous sommes aujourd'hui confrontés à des difficultés. Et heureusement, le Fonds mondial est là, qui continue à mobiliser des ressources pour continuer à sauver nos vies. Donc, nous vous en félicitons. Mais la suggestion est que, par rapport aux mobilisations et demandes de fonds, nous souhaiterons être comme impliqués pour mieux orienter, pour mieux définir nos priorités. Et les priorités, ce sont aujourd'hui continuer à sauver des vies à travers la disponibilité du traitement, des intrants, des charges virales qui pourraient aujourd'hui, même si les ressources diminuent, on aurait pu être assuré que la prise en charge continue. Et c'est ça qui est important. Des enfants doivent être recherchés, des enfants doivent être traités, des personnes vivant avec le VIH doivent continuer de bénéficier, de prendre le traitement, mais des hommes aussi doivent être les rechercher et les mettre dans le traitement. Les femmes enceintes doivent être suivies et c'est ça le gros étendrement aujourd'hui. Et nous prions que tous ces incidents qui sont en train de se produire dans les pays ne touchent pas le traitement et la prise en charge et les autres maladies. Parce que quand on parle des autres maladies, la tuberculose, le palu, c'est ça qui continue à empêcher la bonne prise en charge des personnes vivant avec le VIH parce que ce sont des maladies opportunistes. Je continue à prier pour que le Fonds mondial puisse mobiliser beaucoup plus de ressources pour continuer à sauver des vies, mais à nous protéger aussi du sida et des autres maladies opportunistes. Je vous remercie. Impliquer les bénéficiaires de soins dans les mobilisations de ressources. S'il faut même les inviter dans les activités de mobilisation de ressources pour mieux faire sortir nos priorités qui pourraient nous amener de l'avant. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Sukay, pour votre intervention. Je vais aller à Babacar maintenant pour sa question. J'invite nos collègues d'être aussi brefs qu'ils peuvent être durant nos conversations. Je sais que nous avons beaucoup de choses à parler, mais essayez d'être un peu plus bref. Mais merci. Babacar? Avez toujours
Okay. Thank you. As my colleague, my compatriot Sukay, I express in French. French is our official language. Okay. Bon, la première des choses, c'est de vous remercier pour cet excellent lancement de la campagne autour de l'argumentaire d'investissement pour le Fonds mondial. Donc, je suis Babacar Thiam, je suis spécialiste en financement de la santé, membre de la société civile. et par ailleurs aussi consultant. Je suis également aussi membre de GFAN, donc le point focal pays. Je viens fraîchement de South Africa et on a fait l'élaboration de la campagne de la reconstitution des fonds du Fonds mondial pour l'appui de GFAN, donc en faveur du Fonds mondial. Nous avons eu à échanger avec Pito sur un certain nombre de questions qui sont des préoccupations essentielles donc, pour tous les pays, notamment les pays hautement dépendants des subventions américaines par rapport au PEPFAR et au PMI. Je pense qu'aujourd'hui, nous sommes dans un contexte assez particulier parce que pour la première fois, cette campagne va être organisée au même moment avec d'autres campagnes, donc d'autres partenaires, c'est-à-dire Gavi, l'Alliance Gavi, donc l'Organisation mondiale de la santé, ce qui veut dire qu'il y aura une espèce d'embouteillage donc, autour de différents donateurs. Donc, c'est un enjeu de taille à prendre en considération. Ça, c'est le premier élément. Le second élément, j'ai bien apprécié la vidéo donc Peter, en tant que directeur exécutif, qui a fait une généralité en termes de besoins précis mais structurés, qui fait appel également à différents donateurs, quel que soit le niveau de positionnement.
Nous n'avons plus de son.
Attendez, laissez-moi terminer. Pardon, si ce n'est pas un débat national entre toi et moi, ça c'est un débat global, au plan mondial. Vous avez fait votre intervention, personne ne vous a arrêté. Vous avez fait votre plaidoyer, laissez les gens s'exprimer. C'est le Fonds mondial qui fait le lancement de
Merci.
Donc, il ne faut pas aller dans les détails comme ça. Soyez-vous assez responsable. Voilà. Donc, voilà, laissez-moi terminer. Donc, je disais, voilà, je disais cela, c'est parce que il y a des enjeux dans tous les pays. Dans tous les pays. Si vous regardez aujourd'hui le tableau de financement, le paysage de financement, donc de PEPFAR, PMI et également avec le Fonds mondial, beaucoup de pays qui bénéficient donc de PMI et de PEPFAR sont dans des situations assez critiques. Assez critiques. Et à Johannesburg, on avait fait le plaidoyer devant Peter pour qu'au moins le Fonds mondial soit sauvé. Et pour que cela puisse être, ça demande de l'engagement de la société civile. Dans sa diversité, parce qu'il y a plusieurs réseaux, il y a plusieurs plateformes de la société civile. Mais le cas spécifique de GFAN a été une démonstration de taille. Et ce n'est pas aujourd'hui. De toutes les conférences de reconstitution du Fonds mondial, GFAN était là et présent. Ça aussi, vous le connaissez, le secrétaire du Fonds mondial le sait, et les différents directeurs exécutifs du Fonds mondial le savent pertinemment. Cela n'empêche pas que d'autres entités aujourd'hui peuvent se lever et mener leur plaidoyer à leur façon, parce que tout entre dans la même corbeille. C'est quoi? C'est de faire en sorte qu'au niveau des pays et à l'échelle régionale, à travers l'Union africaine, à travers donc, ce qu'on appelle LM, donc Africa Leadership Meeting, pour que toutes les différentes entités puissent se mobiliser et qu'il y ait plus de ressources pour le Fonds mondial. Mais au-delà du Fonds mondial, il peut y avoir de...
Merci, Babacar. Je m'excuse, mais nous avons besoin d'avancer des autres commentaires et je vous invite de mettre vos autres commentaires dans le chat ou dans le Q&A pour les mondes. Je vous remercie pour vos commentaires qu'on a pu entendre, mais je veux donner le temps aussi à les autres qui ont leur main élevée. I'm going to switch back to English now and pass it to Robin. And then we'll attempt to answer some of those questions. And then I would like to get to Amira, who also has their hand raised. So Robin, over to you.
Thanks so much, Katie and everybody. Hi, GFAN family, and huge congratulations to the Global Fund Secretariat, not only for putting together a fantastic video, but Peter's speech also was very, very well crafted and very helpful. My question is around just understanding a little bit the thinking behind the wording of the 18 billion replenishment ask. We know, and as our previous speakers have just noted, we're in a really complex and dynamic international financing and political context. But learning from the lessons of the 7th replenishment, when we had also the 18 billion target, as advocates, it was very difficult for us. It was an added challenge to be able to push our governments to understand that the 18 billion is not the ceiling, but really the floor. And so just curious why the 18 billion ticket price has not included at least 18 billion so that it opens up for broader discussion and for us to push our governments and private sector partners to really understand that the funding gap is really much bigger than the 18 billion. Thanks.
Thank you, Robin. I will give the floor to Pauline to jump in, but I mean, I think a question like that may be best sort of answered, and I think from Françoise and Linda next week, but I will let Pauline respond. But I agree, it is something that we noted in our reading as well, Robin, and that you'll see in the advocacy brief that we have prepared for all of you on the investment case, that is an interesting choice this time because that at least has appeared more prominently, or at least appeared in past investment cases, which we have always found useful as civil society. And just to address for Suke and Babacar from our side, just in terms of the broader context that we are in at the moment, it is incredibly challenging. But we know that, for example, the investment case from the Global Fund did rely on some of the methodology and information that, Gavi had in their investment case, which is not called an investment case, but I'm just forgetting. You all probably know what it's actually called, the document, but they did rely on some of that other projections and modeling from some of those other organizations that are also seeking resources this year, or just in general are often seeking resources, to make sure that those sort of asks were at least somewhat aligned in terms of what donors would be seeing. So that alignment from the global health institutions to some extent is helpful in our advocacy, because we can point it out where they have been relying on the same kinds of numbers and the same kind of data to come up with these asks. But I will pass it to Pauline for sort of a quick response on any of those points. And then I will go back to the floor, and I have 2 questions with hands raised, and then we will have to cut off this discussion to move on, because we do have a hard stop for our interpreters on the half an hour. But Pauline, first for you.
Yeah, very quick, and thank you, Katie. I mean, you replied really well to Robin question. I mean, more discussion with Françoise next week, and also if needed, happy also to remobilize again. Because we had this call with Johannes, with a smaller group, very a few days before the launch, for this briefing on the investment case. I mean, but if needed, I mean, happy to see and remobilize Johannes for another, going into like the difficult question of the investment case with him. Et puis je voulais aussi répondre de quand même quelques mots à nos collègues francophones. Merci d'être ici. Et puis moi, je suis très contente aussi qu'on ait de plus en plus de collègues d'Afrique francophone qui soient sur les appels du GFAN. Oui, absolument. On vous entend, vous nous demandiez, Soukey, qu'il y ait plus de communautés impliquées dans les campagnes du Fonds mondial. On a toujours fait un effort pour impliquer les communautés, on continue de le faire. Et on le fait notamment aussi avec GFAN, mais aussi avec les partenaires régionaux, avec GFAN Afrique, avec GFAN Asie-Pacifique. Et donc, dans cet esprit-là, donc il y avait cette réunion à Johannesburg la semaine dernière, cette semaine, en début ce week-end. Et d'ailleurs, et pour reprendre sur certains points, moi j'espère, donc il y a aussi un débrief des collègues de GFAN Afrique sur ce call-là, donc j'ai aussi envie d'entendre ce qui vont nous partager, qui ressort donc de cette réunion importante qui a eu lieu cette semaine. Et de même pour répondre à Babacar et aussi aux questions qui étaient dans le chat. Oui, bien sûr, tous ces vidéos, tous ces produits communication seront traduits en français. Là, je le répète, cette vidéo, c'est vraiment fresh, ça le sort à peine de la production et on n'a pas eu le temps de traduire et de faire choix. Mais ça va venir. On est bien conscient que et on essaie aussi même dans d'autres langues, en espagnol, en arabe, par exemple, les les 2 pages, les résumés en 2 pages du rapport de résultats, par exemple, sont traduits en 6 langues et on va traduire aussi les résumés exécutifs de l'argumentaire investissement également dans un certain nombre de langues. Voilà, je m'arrête là. Merci.
Merci, Pauline. Thank you. I'm going to give the floor now to Amira first and then Jacques to raise their questions. I am watching the clock very closely, so invite you to be as precise and brief as you can. But Amira and then Jacques, and then we'll respond and move on.
Bonjour tout le monde. Merci à GFAN pour l'invitation. Merci. C'est toujours un plaisir de vous revoir. Et je voulais juste vous féliciter déjà pour la vidéo. C'est vraiment, il y a tout le récapitulatif par rapport à ce qui se passe. Je voulais juste savoir si, bien sûr, cette vidéo a été faite avant la suspension des fonds américains. J'aurais bien aimé aussi s'il y a aussi des vidéos qui résument, parce que là, il y a une grande polémique sur le VIH et la suspension des fonds par rapport à d'autres pays africains qui sont financés par les fonds américains. Ce n'est pas le cas en Tunisie. Et je voulais savoir s'il y a une autre vidéo qui récapitule ce qui se passe là pour les autres pays avec les antirétroviraux et la suspension des fonds par rapport à ça. Bon, je me présente, je suis Amira Derbeli, je suis coordinatrice du projet VIH et droits humains chez Avocats sans frontières, Tunisie. Et je souhaite aussi, je suis vraiment très solidaire avec mes compatriotes en Afrique là, qui sont vraiment. La situation en Afrique, elle est plus grave, en Afrique subsaharienne, je veux dire, elle est plus grave qu'en Tunisie. Et je fais aussi un appel au Fonds mondial pour que la prochaine subvention sera vraiment, comme elle a dit, ce qu'elle doit être focalisée sur les médicaments, la prévention, plus que d'autres modules. Donc, c'est ça. Et merci beaucoup encore une fois.
Merci Amira. Je vais demander à Jacques de faire son intervention et on va répondre ensemble. Jacques?
Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Là, oui. Vous allez m'entendre?
Oui.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup, Katie. Un grand merci à GFAN Africa, GFAN Asie-Pacifique pour cette opportunité d'échanger avec tous les activistes militants et du monde entier sur la nécessité de continuer la lutte. Moi, je souhaite quand même réagir par rapport aux propos qui ont été évoqués par notre ami point focal de GFAN en Afrique sur le fait qu'il va falloir impérativement tirer les leçons du dernier cycle de reconstitution des fonds mondial et de voir quels étaient les défis qui ont limite entravé le fait d'arriver à l'objectif qui était de 18 milliards de dollars pour assurer la continuité des efforts pour faire face aux 3 pathologies. Moi, je pense que pour surmonter ces défis, il est vraiment impératif de diversifier les sources de financement en engageant activement le secteur privé, en formant des partenariats, par exemple, avec des entreprises pharmaceutiques et technologiques, et aussi en explorant des mécanismes de financement alternatifs tels que les obligations à impact social. Ça, c'est un très grand chantier qui a été lancé dans pas mal de pays. Et je pense que cette dépendance actuelle à l'égard des donateurs traditionnels limite l'efficacité des programmes dans les pays à revenus faibles et intermédiaires. Je pense aussi qu'il va falloir impérativement qu'on fasse attention à cette nécessité d'agilité et d'adaptation aux défis émergents. Je fais référence principalement aux défis émergents en matière de santé mondiale, tels que les résistances aux antimicrobiens, les crises sanitaires liées au climat. Tout cela exige que le Fonds mondial s'adapte rapidement aux nouvelles réalités. Et je pense que pour faciliter cette adaptabilité, il est nécessaire de développer un modèle de financement qui est plus opérationnel, plus flexible, comprenant des réserves de financement qui peuvent être rapidement allouées pour faire face aux menaces sanitaires émergentes, et aussi ajuster les structures de prise de décision pour permettre des appropriations rapides, des modifications, des allocations de subventions et des priorités stratégiques. Je pense que ce linkage entre le mandat de Fonds mondial avec les autres challenges sanitaires à l'échelle globale ne peut que favoriser le fait que d'autres structures, d'autres mécanismes allouent plus de fonds pour le Fonds mondial. Et je vais terminer par l'importance de renforcer tout ce qui est collaboration avec les organismes régionaux pour améliorer l'allocation des ressources et faciliter des réponses plus rapides aux urgences sanitaires transfrontalières. Voilà, merci beaucoup, Katie.
Merci, Zach. J'apprécie beaucoup vos commentaires. Pauline, est-ce que tu veux répondre à quelque part de ces questions? Mais juste pour dire à nos deux derniers intervenants que ça, c'est mon alarme pour votre temps, Zach, mais tu as terminé avant. Je crois que au même niveau qu'on parle d'immobilisation des ressources durant les prochains mois, parce que c'est le focus pour maintenant, c'est aussi important que nous avons toujours notre travail est toujours de faire les politiques effectives au sein du Fonds mondial. Donc, on a toujours notre autre partie de travail qui est de faire les interventions, faire les recherches, faire le plaidoyage autour de ces thèmes, comme vous avez dit, Jacques, comme le climat et d'examiner les différentes options avec social funding, social impact funding, j'ai oublié en français. Mais Pauline, est-ce que vous avez quelque chose que vous voulez répondre et on doit avancer notre agenda aussi.
Très, très brièvement, Amira, merci pour la question. La vidéo a été tournée le 18 ou le 19 février. Hein. Pardon, le 18 ou le 17 février, donc après les coupes, évidemment. Par contre, évidemment, le contenu de l'argumentaire d'investissement a été développé avant les coupes. Maintenant, sur l'impact des coupes US, etc., donc nos équipes travaillent dessus. Et il y a je pense que c'est aussi pour ça une discussion avec Johannes sur l'argumentaire d'investissement dans les semaines à venir pourrait être intéressante pour les questions un peu plus approfondies. Donc parce que bien évidemment, il y a une prise en compte par rapport à ça. Dans tous les cas, les besoins restent très importants et on voulait lancer l'argumentaire d'investissement pour commencer la campagne. Et puis, Zach, la question aussi, enfin, je pense que peut-être on pensait faire un appel spécifique avec le groupe MENA dans les semaines qui viennent. Donc, on pourra réapprofondir ça aussi dans ce cadre-là. Parce que il y a tout un autre agenda là qui suit. Je ne veux pas oublier.
Merci. Thank you, Pauline. I'm going to switch back to English now. And I'm going to pass it over to our colleague from GFAN Africa, who just ahead of the launch of the investment case held a regional meeting in Johannesburg, I believe, but Fitcham will correct me where I'm wrong, but we wanted to have an opportunity to bring back to you all a few comments from our colleagues at GFAN Africa and where they think they're headed now that we see this investment case and the work that we have. So Fitcham, I'm going to pass it over to you to speak, and I believe Karthi is going to share some slides. So Karthi, do let us know if you're having any difficulty getting those slides up.
Thank you very much, KG. I believe I'm audible. And you're right, the meeting was in Johannesburg, South Africa over the weekend. So we had a very good meeting. Also, we had the pleasure of Peter Sands addressing our meeting, and also lots of concerns and discussions were held. So I'll do kind of a readout on the key takeaways. Then also Karthi will give us some insight on our campaign. So the first one was that it was highlighted it was a critical year for Global Fund. Also, this is an important year for Global Fund, but also global health broadly. Rising fiscal pressures, competing domestic priorities, and political shifts are affecting donor commitments to global health funding. And at the same time, also, there are more restrictions targeting human rights defenders, free speech, and also activism, making advocacy and mobilization more difficult. The second point was that this year is also, there is a need for new advocacy strategy Unlike previous replenishments, we must also be very much focused on the shift to be more quiet and targeted on our advocacy without public pressure, open letters, or celebratory events. Embassy visits, bilateral diplomatic engagements, private letters to stakeholders, tailoring messages to what country leaders are interested in hearing. Are all strategies we should use. The third one was on domestic resource mobilization, and this must be also again on the forefront, especially given the shock of the donor withdrawals, such as the U.S. funding freeze and overall donor fatigue. It's also important to showcase African leadership and investment in health. The fourth point is that we need more coordination than ever before, given the many sensitivities and also the changing political landscape. We need to work better together within and across regions, aligning political engagements, example, presidential visits to countries and such, and also with advocacy efforts. For example, embassy visits in Africa, especially the one we did during the church caravan and the previous replenishment. This can maximize impact as perceived. Coordination is also needed to align timing of advocacy effectively. For example, we heard from our colleague Colin from the US that that direct advocacy to U.S. government should be paused for now, and also we need to also look into other donor constituencies. The fifth one is on strategic engagement with parliamentarians. We have noticed that parliamentarians need to champion this case as an example, and also there were a panel of members of parliament from across the region, which also was very much emphasized on the need for multi-sectoral approaches and also to engage civil society in the convenings. Katie, can you hear me? Okay. The sixth one is on the importance of data and impact of evidence. We have also to be very conscious to show the impact of global fund investment on communities and countries with data and strong impact stories about global funds work in Africa. The seventh point is that engaging young people is very important and critical more than ever. There needs to be a consistent and active engagement with young people on the replenishment, and also being the biggest long-term beneficiaries of decision being made today. So active engagement is absolutely necessary moving forward. Also, we will be kind of hosting a youth summit after the investment case is launched. And the final is the eighth point is leveraging the G20 and the TCAD process, the upcoming TCAD 9 process and the G20. And also given that G20 presidency is under South Africa, and also we have AU as +1 joining that that constituency. So as first Africa will be hosting the G20, we need to push for stronger donor commitments, and also we need to link this to domestic health financing and also to global health solidarity efforts. Let me stop here and give the floor to Karti. Thank you.
Thanks, Fitzim, and hi, everyone. My name is Karti, and I'm happy to present a little bit about the GFAN Africa campaign on behalf of Waki Health and Impact Santé Afrique. So just to start with a little bit about our rationale, the first point is that, as we've heard multiple times on this call and throughout this discussion, we have this one world that is facing a myriad of interconnected and interlinked crises, and no country or region can solve these challenges alone. The second rationale is that we are part of the social movement with memory. The fight against HIV, TB, and malaria has been a testament to the power of global solidarity, and we need to return to that memory. Progress comes from our collective action. Thirdly, as the investment case mentioned multiple times, there's the power of partnerships. The Global Fund partnership is unique, and it shows that we all have a role to play in creating a healthier and more equitable world. With this in mind, our campaign for this year is One World, One Fight. So we presented this campaign at the GFAN Africa Annual Summit this last weekend and got some feedback on our messaging package. And we will be working to refine our key messages and align them also with the investment case. Our 4 key areas of messaging, just to give a preview, the first is about investments in health. really pushing for domestic resource mobilization, given that this is one of the main objectives of the GFAN Africa campaign. Those messages will be about why investing in health is really investing in a thriving Africa, and really pushing for our leaders to commit more domestic resources. We also want to use the campaign to showcase African leadership and share best practices and positive stories from across the region. The second is dare to do more. This is a call to action for our leaders to really look at the young people of our continent, to use their energy, to use their potential, and say, and ask them to make bold commitments for their future. The third is leave no one behind. This is a response to the shrinking civic space and the attacks on human rights we are seeing, and really going back to the idea that health is a human right, and it must be protected for all. The last is communities first. And this is about amplifying the Global Fund's impact on communities, on spotlighting the community-led and community-driven initiatives that the Global Fund champions, and ensuring that in this new grant cycle, communities continue to be centered in our campaign. So in short, this is our presentation for this year. We will be sharing the refined key messages, communications package, and other materials in the coming weeks, as well as hosting a youth summit, a parliamentarian briefing, and other civil society briefings. Thank you.
Thank you, Karthi and Fitsum, so much. What I think you're getting a lot of love for the look, but also the content that you've just shared with us in terms of your focuses for the campaign. And I liked the last thing being putting communities first. And I think we all enjoyed that. So thank you very much for this, and we look forward to sharing your resources. We only have a few minutes left in terms of the call. So what we would like to do is just move on now to share with you a little bit of some of our advice, but also from some of our colleagues who have been online today with us in terms of how to go about what to do next. So we now know who is going to be our host. So if we could just put up towards the 8th replenishment, yeah, that one. So we now know who the hosts are. We don't have the dates, et cetera, but we will start to have those conversations with our colleagues in the UK and South Africa as well around how they play and what role they're going to be playing in the replenishment in terms of those, political pressure and leadership, and an important point of contact and relay for advocacy messages from other countries utilizing the UK's leadership. And often, just to say that, the hosts and again, this time co-hosts often have significant input into secondary messaging for the replenishment and the campaigning in general. So we are, in addition to, what our colleagues from GFAN Africa are producing in terms of social media assets, et cetera, we just wanted to share with you really quickly some of the tools that we do have available. Most of these are available as of today, and some are still to come. So you will be able to find our website page that the link has been put into the chat. So we've shared a very brief sort of, I don't know, it's a cathartic response from us in terms of finally seeing this long-awaited investment case after having released our funding gap kill report and how to close the funding gap back in July, and our asks for the replenishment. So we kind of go through those and sort of say where we sort of feel the investment case lands in terms of those key asks that we had that was co-signed by about 80 other organizations from civil society. We will be having a series of thematic briefs. We do have a bit of a cheat sheet to understand the investment case. For those of you who haven't opened it yet, you can get up to speed on sort of what some of the key highlights in there are. And then the other thing that we wanted to do this time really quickly, because we feel like even though the timing of this is not necessarily any later than previous years or anything like that, not by much, it does sort of feel like we really have to, get going and move now that we have this investment case. So our colleague Rita sort of leaned on some of her past sort of work around messaging and bringing together asks and messaging and how to identify your targets. and we have created a little bit of a tool to help you sort of identify, what your ask should be of the audiences and the targets that you are trying to reach in your country. And when we say ask, we also often mean what your financial ask is of your own government or, for domestic resource mobilization. So sort of as a donor or for domestic resource mobilization. So we did sort of share this tool. And I think, just thinking on my feet here, given the time today, we'll probably want to come back to this, maybe even offer just sort of a little like how-to kind of conversation that won't be part of a regular GFAN call, but maybe just have people come onto the call and sort of ask questions about how to approach this. For many of you in some of the key and biggest donor countries, this is a process that you have all been involved with a number of your other colleagues in that same country. I know this exists in Canada and the UK and France, and I believe also in Germany. And you have to develop an ask that comes out of this investment case to make an ask of your government. And so some of the things that we have to do when we're doing that is talk to our colleagues in country who may also be advocating and speaking with government, so that we do have, some consistency in the ask, which is not to say that everybody always has to have the same ask of their government, right? Sometimes it is helpful to be, sort of playing that game of asking for, more and layering those asks of your government in terms of resources and other expertise that you're expecting from your government. We did want to give a chance for our colleague Peter in Germany to jump in and share some of his experience in terms of how in Germany they've used the investment case to develop their ask and to campaign ahead of the replenishment. So Peter, I know this is a little bit more rushed than we had hoped for because of the time and the discussion that took place, but I wanted to pass it over to you to share some of your thoughts and reflections and advice, I guess.
So I don't know, can I speak now?
Yes.
Katie, my internet connection is not very good.
I can hear you
Did
well.
you ask me to speak?
Yes.
Okay. So I make this very brief. Time is running out. So what we are doing next is we look into the investment case. We come up with a fair share calculation. So fair share calculation means that we sort of think around, what would Germany's contribution be based on its economic capacity. So we look into that. We did this in the past. We had extensive calls with the Global Fund. We had telephone conferences. We had webinars on that. So this is very important. This will be the next step. So we will come up with our calculation as soon as possible. And then, of course, we work with the information that comes out of the investment case. This is super helpful. I did read it. If I look at the investment case at a glance, I'm very happy with 9 pages long, like the last one. It's only 2 pages. So congratulations for that. We have to convince, our politicians don't have that much time. So we have to be as short as possible, as short as I am now. And then, of course, we have to look into the arguments that are used, and there are some arguments that I really like, and there are some that I don't like that much, and that won't use that much. So we have arguments on health system strengthening, on UHC, on return on investment, and all of that. And we have human rights-based arguments and key populations-based. All of these issues that are threatened. So, of course, we will focus in our approach on that particular arguments that really rely to the people living with HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria. And here, I think the GFAN and the GFAN speakers, they have really voice and something to say. So this is really important. What miss in the investment case is the mentioning the debt crisis. I don't see mentioning key populations such as drug users, for example. So we always put light on those things that are not in there. And of course, there's this big elephant in the room. What happened when the US really withdraw its support? So what situation do we have then? It's not really inside. I do understand it's not inside. It's logic, but at a certain point, we have to decide as community if we want to stay credible, how to deal with that and how to address that. We always have done that in the past in support with the Global Fund, but sometimes, of course, we have different arguments, and we are going to come up with them, and we are going to raise them. In the center of our work will probably be health equity. So we already started working on that last year with producing some videos. So this will be in a center of our campaign, yeah, since we have now 3:30, I just stop.
Thanks, Peter. I'm sorry. Again, we were trying to maybe do too much on this call, but as always, it's a good and useful conversation. I really appreciate your reflections, and I think it gives colleagues a quick sense of how some colleagues address the issue of sort of an ask and using the investment case, but also adding to it when there are themes and issues that you need to talk about with your government, because you need to keep those issues top of mind. So with that in mind, and we are just going to wrap up in 2 minutes here, but just to share with you on screen, you can go to our website now and find many of these tools. So we have shared for you an advocacy brief that gives a very short overview of what's in the investment case again and how it lines up to the kinds of asks that we have had, but also a bit of an analysis of how it lines up in methodology and some of the themes to previous investment cases. We have the cheat sheet for you. We do have some thematic briefs, and we will continue to have more, and we've named sort of some of them there that literally will be coming out in the coming days and weeks. And then we also have, and I think this is really important to mention, we do have some social media assets and messaging. If you scroll down that web page of ours on our website, that you can grab and can quickly talk about the impact of the Global Fund as a starting point for your conversations within your countries or your regions about the impact of the Global Fund. So we will come back, as Conte said, we will come back to all of these. We will look to, share maybe more of an informal kind of learning kind of call with some of these tools. And we will come back next week, hopefully perhaps the week after, with other colleagues from the Secretariat for a more formal overview and another opportunity to ask and raise questions about, why and where and how things are in the investment case, but also, the tools that are being developed. So thank you for joining us this week for this call. And we apologize again that we've gone right up against the time, but appreciate the interest and the discussion, and just knowing that you can always reach out to us at the team in GFAN, but you'll be seeing more from us come out in terms of calls, and please do keep an eye on that webpage, maybe bookmark it or something, if that's the cool thing to still do. I don't know. I'm too much of a Luddite, but keep an eye on that page, because we will continue, and throughout the next few months, continue to add tools, add briefs, add other information for you to support you in your advocacy. So thank you everyone for today. Thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you to GFAN Africa. We're loving that look. And we look forward to talking with you all again very soon and continuing these discussions. So thank you to my team for their amazing work this week to get all of this ready and this call. Take care, everyone. Have a good rest of your days.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.